"You're so feminine," my wife laughed in front of her friends. Then her best friend said, "He was very manly with me yesterday. Maybe that's your problem." All right, Reddit. This story has been burning a hole in my chest for months now, and my buddy Ryan finally convinced me to write it all out. According to him, this is prime Reddit content, and maybe getting it off my chest will help me process everything that went down. So here we are. My wife humiliated me in front of her entire friend group by calling me feminine. Her best friend defended me with a comment that detonated our entire marriage. Turns out there was more to that comment than anyone realized at the time, and the fallout was absolutely nuclear. Let me start from the beginning because this is one of those situations that requires serious context to fully understand. I, 32 male, work as a veterinary technician at a small animal clinic here in North Carolina. Been doing it for about 8 years now, ever since I finished my certification right after community college. The clinic is nothing fancy. We handle mostly dogs and cats, the occasional exotic pet, routine checkups, and the more serious medical cases that require actual intervention. The job pays decent. I genuinely love working with animals. And there's something deeply satisfying about helping sick pets get better and watching owners' faces light up when they realize their dog or cat is going to pull through. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Not exactly the most traditionally masculine career path. I've heard every comment in the book. Real men don't work with fluffy animals. Why didn't you become an actual vet if you wanted to do that? Must be nice playing with puppies all day. Whatever. The reality is, the job involves a lot more than most people realize. Restraining aggressive animals, handling medical emergencies, assisting with surgeries that can last hours, dealing with bodily fluids that would make most people gag. But sure, tell me more about how it's not a real job. Here's the thing though. I never cared what people thought about my career. I'm good at what I do. I make enough money to live comfortably, and I come home every day feeling like I actually contributed something meaningful to the world. That's more than a lot of people can say about their six-figure corporate gigs. My house growing up was different from most. My dad worked as a plumber for 30 years, came home with dirty hands and a tired back, and never once apologized for what he did. My mom was a nurse who worked night shifts and still managed to be at every single one of my baseball games. They taught me that honest work was honest work, that taking care of people and things mattered, and that a man's worth wasn't measured by his job title or his paycheck. Good lessons. I just wish my wife had agreed with them. Nicole and I met about 6 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. One of those backyard barbecue situations where everyone's standing around in clusters, making small talk and pretending to enjoy lukewarm beverages. She was working in pharmaceutical sales at the time, climbing the corporate ladder with designer heels and a smile that could convince anyone to sign on the dotted line. Classic type A personality. Ambitious, driven, always looking for the next rung to grab. I was the guy in the corner having a full conversation with the host's golden retriever, Murphy, because honestly, dogs are better company than most humans at parties. Less judgment, more genuine enthusiasm. Murphy didn't care about my career trajectory or my 5-year plan. He just wanted belly rubs and the occasional snack from my plate. Nicole thought it was cute. She walked over with this amused smile on her face and asked if Murphy was better company than the humans. I told her Murphy hadn't tried to sell me anything yet, so he was winning by default. She laughed, said she probably deserved that given her job, and sat down on the grass next to me in her obviously expensive dress without a second thought. We talked for 2 hours while Murphy alternated between demanding attention from each of us. She said she'd never met a guy who was so comfortable just being himself, not trying to impress anyone, or perform some version of masculinity that didn't fit. I told her I was just being myself because pretending to be someone else sounded exhausting. Our first real date was at this hole-in-the-wall Italian place downtown that I'd been going to since college. Nothing fancy. Checkered tablecloths, candles stuck in old wine bottles, a menu that hadn't changed in probably 20 years. We talked for 4 hours about everything and nothing, trading stories about our families, our friends, our weird childhood memories. She said she loved that I wasn't trying to impress her with expensive restaurants or flashy gestures. I said I figured good food and good conversation mattered more than a Yelp rating. By the end of that dinner, I was pretty sure I'd found someone special. Someone who saw me for who I was and actually appreciated it instead of trying to reshape me into something else. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. Nice ring. Nothing crazy extravagant. I wasn't going to go into debt to prove I loved her, and she said she appreciated that. The wedding was a relatively small affair. About 80 guests at a venue her mom helped us find. Her parents, Edward and Grace, weren't exactly thrilled about their daughter marrying a vet tech, but they kept their opinions mostly to themselves during the ceremony. I caught a few looks, a few whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by, but I figured that was just standard in-law stuff. My family loved Nicole because she made me happy. That was enough for them. My dad pulled me aside at the reception and told me he was proud of the man I'd become, that I'd found a partner who seemed to genuinely love me. I believed him. I believed all of it. The first couple years of marriage were genuinely good. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from my clinic and 40 minutes from her corporate office. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, a decent backyard, a garage where I could set up a workbench for the woodworking hobby I'd been meaning to develop. We adopted a rescue dog together. This chaotic little mutt named Biscuit, who I swear operates on pure instinct and zero logic. Part beagle, part something else entirely. All energy and mischief. I fell in love with him the second I saw him at the shelter, cowering in the corner of his cage, and Nicole agreed to adopt him mostly because she could see how much he meant to me. Life settled into that comfortable rhythm that married couples find. We'd cook dinner together on weeknights, watch movies on the weekends, visit each other's families for holidays. Normal stuff. Happy stuff. That's when things started shifting. Slowly at first, so slowly I didn't even notice it was happening. Nicole kept climbing at work. Regional manager, then senior regional manager, then director of something or other. Her salary climbed with her, and suddenly she was making nearly 3 times what I was. I was proud of her success. Genuinely proud. She worked hard, and she deserved the recognition. But somewhere along the way, the balance in our relationship started tilting in a direction I didn't expect. Her friend group evolved. The down-to-earth people we'd hung out with as a couple gradually got replaced by this clique of corporate women who compared handbags and vacation destinations like it was an Olympic sport. Wine nights at our house became these elaborate affairs where everyone showed up in outfits that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, talking about promotions and investment portfolios and the problems of hiring good help these days. I'd hang around for a while trying to participate, but eventually I learned to make myself scarce. They weren't interested in anything I had to say, and my presence seemed to make Nicole uncomfortable, like I was some kind of embarrassment she couldn't fully hide. The comments started small, little suggestions here and there about how maybe I should consider going back to school, getting a real degree, finding something more prestigious. She'd mentioned how her coworker Amanda's husband just made partner at his law firm, or how her friend Brittany's husband was killing it in finance, and they just bought a vacation home in the mountains. The implication was clear. Why can't you be more like them? I'd shrug it off. I was happy with my life. I loved my job, loved our house, loved our dog. Wasn't that supposed to be the whole point of building a life together? But Nicole wasn't happy anymore. Or maybe she was happy but embarrassed about being happy with someone like me. The distinction became harder and harder to identify as the months went on. The friend group became the epicenter of all this tension. There were 4 of them in Nicole's inner circle: Brittany, Megan, Ashley, and Danielle. Each one represented a different flavor of the corporate wife archetype that Nicole seemed increasingly determined to embody. Brittany was married to this finance bro named Kevin, who wore vests unironically and talked about cryptocurrency like it was a religion. Dude couldn't have a conversation without mentioning his portfolio performance or some obscure investment strategy that made everyone else feel poor and stupid by comparison. He looked at me like I was furniture, something in the room that served no real purpose but wasn't worth the effort to remove. Megan's husband was a surgeon named Robert, who looked like he'd never worked a day with his actual hands in his life. Perfectly manicured fingernails, designer suits even on casual weekends. This perpetual expression of mild disdain for anyone who made less than $500,000 annually. He'd asked me once what my specialty was at the clinic, and when I explained I was a vet tech rather than an actual veterinarian, he literally said "oh" and walked away mid-conversation. Ashley was engaged to a real estate developer named Preston, which should tell you everything you need to know about him. Guy had opinions about neighborhood property values the way normal people have opinions about the weather. Constantly, loudly, and without any awareness that nobody else cared. And then there was Danielle. Danielle was Nicole's best friend since their freshman year of college. They'd been roommates, study partners, bridesmaids at each other's weddings. Or would have been, except Danielle was single and showed no particular interest in changing that status. She worked as a marketing executive at some tech company, made excellent money, and seemed completely comfortable in her own skin in a way that the other women in the group never quite achieved. She was also the only one of Nicole's friends who didn't treat me like I was invisible or beneath consideration. Danielle had this presence about her. Dark hair, green eyes, this sharp wit that could either warm you up or cut you down depending on her mood. When she walked into a room, people noticed. Not because she was trying to be noticed. She just commanded attention naturally. Whenever the whole group would come over for one of Nicole's wine nights, Danielle would actually seek me out, ask about my day, my work, whether we'd had any interesting cases at the clinic. She'd laugh at my jokes instead of politely tolerating them. She'd include me in conversations instead of waiting for me to take the hint and disappear, so the real talking could begin. I appreciated it more than I probably should have. Having someone in that crowd who saw me as an actual person instead of Nicole's unfortunate accessory felt like finding an oasis in a very particular kind of desert. Things came to a head about 3 months ago at this dinner party Nicole insisted on hosting. She'd been planning it for weeks, stressing about every single detail like the fate of civilization depended on the napkin placement and the appetizer arrangement. I did everything she asked without complaint. Deep cleaned the house, set up the patio furniture, pressure washed the deck, grilled the main course because apparently that was my one acceptable contribution to the evening. The whole friend group showed up with their significant others, plus a few of Nicole's work colleagues and their partners. Everyone dressed like they were attending a corporate gala, while I stuck with my usual jeans and a nice button-down, because Nicole had specifically told me not to overdress and make the other husbands feel like they needed to compete. Yeah, that comment should have been a red flag the size of a billboard. But I was still operating under the assumption that my wife and I were on the same team. The evening went fine for the most part. Dinner was good, I'd nailed the steaks, and even Robert the surgeon had to admit the food was impressive before immediately pivoting to a story about some complicated procedure he'd performed that week. Conversation flowed, Nicole played the perfect hostess, and I made myself useful by keeping plates full and drinks refreshed without drawing too much attention to myself. After dinner, everyone migrated to the living room for dessert and coffee. I stayed in the kitchen cleaning up because that's just who I am. I can't stand leaving a mess. And honestly, the dishes gave me something to do, besides stand around listening to Kevin lecture everyone about market volatility. That's when I heard the laughter. Not just regular party laughter. This was that particular kind of laughter that happens at someone's expense. Pointed, a little too loud, with an edge of cruelty underneath the humor. I moved toward the doorway to see what was so funny and caught the tail end of Nicole's comment. She was sitting on the couch, surrounded by her friends, gesturing toward the kitchen where I'd been working. I mean, look at him in there doing dishes. It's so feminine. Most husbands would be out here networking or talking business, but mine's probably Googling new casserole recipes or thinking about which cleaning product works best on stainless steel. More laughter. Brittany, Megan, Ashley, even some of the work colleagues I barely knew. Everyone except Danielle, I noticed, who was staring at Nicole with an expression I couldn't quite read. Brittany leaned in with that conspiratorial tone she always used when she was about to say something she knew was terrible. Kevin wouldn't be caught dead in a kitchen unless he was pouring himself a drink. He says real men have people to do that for them. Robert's the same way, Megan added. I think he'd actually have a crisis if someone asked him to load a dishwasher. Might damage his surgeon hands. More laughter. Ashley made some crack about how at least I was house-trained, which sent the whole group into hysterics. I stood there in the doorway, dish towel in hand, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. My own wife, making me the punchline of a joke in front of everyone we knew. In our house. At a party I'd helped her prepare for. Nicole caught me standing there. For a split second, something flickered across her face. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe just embarrassment that I'd overheard. But she didn't apologize. Didn't walk anything back. Didn't even look particularly sorry. She just stared at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong by being present for my own humiliation. The room went quiet as people noticed me in the doorway. Brittany had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Robert examined his drink like it contained the secrets of the universe. Kevin smirked like this was exactly the entertainment he'd been hoping for. That's when Danielle spoke up. Her voice cut through the awkward silence like a blade, clear and controlled and absolutely devastating. Actually, she said, looking directly at Nicole, he was very manly with me yesterday. Maybe that's your problem. Dead. Silence. Every head in the room swiveled toward Danielle. Nicole's face went through about 7 different colors. Confusion, shock, anger, something that looked almost like fear, before settling on a shade of purple I'd genuinely never seen on a human face before. Excuse me? Nicole's voice came out barely above a whisper. Danielle didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Didn't back down even slightly. I said what I said. You're so busy trying to turn your husband into something he's not that you can't even see what you have right in front of you. She gestured toward me with her coffee cup, like I was evidence in her argument. Jonathan spent his entire lunch break yesterday helping me move furniture into my new apartment because I mentioned I was struggling with it. He carried a couch up 3 flights of stairs by himself, fixed my garbage disposal that was making a weird grinding noise, and refused to let me pay him or even buy him lunch. That's manly. That's what an actual man looks like. Not these walking investment portfolios you all married who probably can't change a car tire without calling their assistants. The silence in the room was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. I stood there completely frozen, my brain trying to process what was happening. I had helped Danielle move furniture yesterday. She'd mentioned at the previous get-together that she was changing apartments and dreading the move, and I'd offered to help because that's just what you do when a friend needs assistance. Simple as that. I'd taken an extended lunch, helped her get the heavy stuff settled, and went back to work. Didn't think twice about it. I had absolutely no idea that offering to help a friend would become the ammunition that blew up my marriage. Nicole stood up from the couch, hands trembling at her sides. Are you seriously defending my husband right now? In my own house? Someone has to. Danielle shot back without missing a beat. Since you clearly won't. Since you'd rather sit here making him the punchline of some cruel little joke to impress people who don't actually matter. These are my friends, Danielle. And he's your husband, supposedly. Though you could have fooled me based on how you just talked about him. The room erupted into chaos. Brittany and Megan immediately flanked Nicole like some kind of suburban defense squad, demanding to know what exactly had happened yesterday between me and Danielle. Ashley's fiancé Preston looked like he wanted to physically teleport to another dimension. Kevin was watching the whole thing unfold with barely concealed amusement, like this was better than anything on reality TV. Robert examined his watch as if calculating exactly how much of his valuable time was being wasted. And Nicole was staring at me with this look of absolute betrayal, like I'd been the one to orchestrate this whole thing. Like I'd planned some elaborate scheme to humiliate her at her own party. You went to her apartment? She hissed at me, her voice low and venomous. Alone? I helped her move a couch, Nicole. She mentioned she was struggling with the move and I offered to help, like I would for literally anyone who asked. Hey, and you didn't think to mention it to me? Mention what? That I spent my lunch break helping a friend? Should I also report every time I hold a door for someone? Send you a detailed log every time I help an elderly patient carry their cat into the clinic? Don't you dare make me the crazy one here, Jonathan. Her voice was getting louder now, the polished hostess persona cracking like dry paint. You went to another woman's apartment without telling me, while I was at work. Danielle let out this incredulous laugh that sounded almost painful. Nicole, I've been your best friend for 12 years. 12 years. Do you really think I would mess around with your husband? I was making a point about how you treat him, not confessing to some torrid affair. But the seed was already planted. I could see it taking root behind Nicole's eyes. The suspicion, the paranoia, the need to find someone to blame for her own guilt about what she'd said. It was easier to believe I'd betrayed her with her best friend than to confront the reality that she'd just humiliated her husband in front of everyone they knew. The party ended about 20 minutes later in the most awkward exodus I've ever witnessed. Guests made their excuses and practically sprinted for the exit like the house was on fire. Kevin actually patted me on the shoulder on his way out and said, "Good luck, man," with a smirk that made me want to rearrange his face. Robert and Megan left without saying goodbye at all. Brittany lingered just long enough to shoot me a dirty look that suggested this was somehow all my fault. Danielle was the last to leave. She stopped at the front door and looked at both of us. Nicole still standing rigid with rage in the living room, me hovering awkwardly between them like a hostage in my own home. "You know what's sad?" she said, directing her words at Nicole. "He's the best thing that ever happened to you, and you're too busy trying to impress people who don't actually care about you to see it. I hope someday you figure that out before it's too late to fix what you're breaking." Then she turned to me, her expression softening into something that looked almost like apology. "I'm sorry I made things worse. I know I probably did, but I just couldn't sit there and listen to them talk about you like that. Not anymore." She left, and the silence she left behind felt like a physical weight pressing down on both of us. Nicole and I didn't speak for 3 days after that night. She slept in the guest room, claiming she needed space to process everything that had happened. I took Biscuit for longer walks than usual, sometimes an hour or more, just to get out of the house and clear my head. The dog seemed to sense something was wrong. He'd press against my leg while we walked, look up at me with those worried brown eyes like he was trying to figure out how to fix whatever had broken. On the third day, Nicole finally emerged from her self-imposed exile with what she called her decision. She sat across from me at the kitchen table like we were business partners negotiating a contract rather than a married couple trying to navigate a crisis. Her face was carefully composed, her voice flat and professional. "I've been thinking a lot," she began, "and I've realized there are some fundamental incompatibilities between us that I've been ignoring for too long." "Incompatibilities," I repeated. "Yes, our goals are different. Our values are different. You're content with where you are in life, and I need more than that. I need someone who wants to grow, to achieve, to build something significant. And doing a job I love, being happy with what I have, owning a house and building a life together, that's not significant? It's settling, Jonathan." She said the word like it tasted bitter in her mouth. "I'm climbing the ladder. I'm going places. And I need a partner who's going to climb with me, not someone who's satisfied staying on the same rung forever." There it was. The word she'd been circling around for months, maybe years. Settling. I wasn't a partner she'd chosen. I was a placeholder she'd outgrown. "I think we need a trial separation," she continued. "Time apart to figure out what we really want." I looked at her for a long moment, thought about fighting for her, about pointing out all the ways she was wrong, about begging her to remember why we'd gotten married in the first place. Then I thought about standing in that doorway with a dish towel while she called me feminine, while she made me a joke, while she laughed along with everyone else. "Okay," I said. She blinked, clearly thrown off. "Okay? If that's how you feel, then okay. Let's separate." I think she'd expected me to fight, to grovel and promise to change, to beg for another chance to prove myself worthy of her. But you can't make someone respect you. They either do or they don't. We agreed that I would move out since the house was technically hers, purchased with her savings and a generous contribution from her parents before we'd gotten married. Fine by me. I didn't want to stay somewhere I wasn't wanted. Over the next 2 weeks, I packed up my belongings, found a decent one-bedroom apartment closer to the clinic, and began the process of untangling our shared life. Nicole mostly stayed out of my way, probably relieved that I wasn't making the whole thing dramatic. Her friends came by a few times to support her through this difficult time, which apparently meant sitting around drinking expensive juice and talking about how she deserved better anyway. I heard their conversations through the walls as I packed boxes. Brittany's voice carrying particularly well as she declared that Nicole had been too good for me from the start. Megan agreeing that she'd always had reservations about my lack of ambition. Not a single word about what Nicole had actually said that night, about the cruelty of it. Biscuit came with me when I left. That part wasn't even a discussion. He'd been my dog before Nicole and I got together, and she'd never really bonded with him anyway. She didn't argue about it, probably relieved to have one less reminder of me around. The apartment was small but clean. One bedroom, a galley kitchen, a tiny balcony that looked out over a pretty decent courtyard, where Biscuit could watch squirrels and judge them accordingly. I set up my furniture and slowly started building a new routine. First week, I repainted the whole place. Nicole had never let me choose paint colors. Everything in our house had been her decision, usually some shade of gray or beige that she'd seen in a magazine. My apartment got dark blue in the bedroom, a warm tan in the living room, and I didn't ask anyone's permission. Second week, I bought a grill for the balcony. Nothing fancy, just a small Weber that fit in the corner. Started cooking out there most nights, Biscuit sitting at my feet hoping something would drop. The neighbor across the courtyard, this older guy named Frank, started waving at me when he saw me grilling. Eventually we got to talking. Turns out he'd been through a divorce himself about 10 years back. Said the first year was rough, but it got better. Third week, I started hitting the gym again. Not to impress anyone or bulk up for some revenge body transformation, just because I missed it. Nicole had always made comments about how much time I spent there, like it was time taken away from her. Without that guilt, I found myself actually enjoying the routine again. And here's the thing that surprised me most. I felt better almost immediately. No more walking on eggshells wondering if my existence was embarrassing enough to comment on. No more nights lying next to someone who saw me as a stepping stone rather than a destination. No more checking myself before I spoke to make sure I wasn't about to say something that would embarrass her in front of the right people. My buddy Ryan helped me move and stuck around for pizza afterward. You know what gets me? Ryan said, reaching for another slice. She spent years making you feel like there was something fundamentally wrong with you for being a decent human being. I don't know if she meant it that way. Stop. He pointed his pizza at me. Stop making excuses for someone who doesn't deserve them. She called you feminine for doing dishes in front of a room full of people. That's not a misunderstanding. That's contempt. He wasn't wrong. About 5 weeks after I moved out, I ran into Danielle at a coffee shop near my new apartment. Completely random encounter. She was picking up an order at the counter. I was settling into a corner table with a book on my day off. She spotted me first. Jonathan? She walked over, her expression uncertain. Hey, how are you doing? Better, actually. Getting used to the new place. I heard about the separation becoming official. I'm sorry. You apologizing for my marriage falling apart? I'm apologizing for my role in accelerating it. She sat down across from me. I know what I said that night probably made everything worse. You just pulled the pin on a grenade that was already built. Nicole and I had problems long before that dinner party. We ended up talking for 2 hours. About work, about life, about the wreckage of our respective social situations. It felt easy in a way that conversations with Nicole hadn't felt in years. When we finally said goodbye, Danielle handed me her phone number scrawled on a napkin. In case you ever need someone to talk to. Over the following months, Nicole and I navigated the official divorce process with minimal drama. Every conversation was professional and distant, like we were colleagues who'd never actually known each other. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. I signed the papers at my lawyer's office during my lunch break, grabbed a sandwich on the way back to the clinic, and went back to work like it was any other day. That night, Danielle came over with takeout, and we watched a movie on my couch with Biscuit wedged between us. She didn't make a big deal about it being some significant milestone, just let it be what it was. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Nicole had already started dating someone new, some executive at her company named Bradley. Guy wore suits that cost more than my monthly rent, had opinions about watch brands and vacation destinations, and fit perfectly into the social circle she'd been trying to ascend into all along. Meanwhile, my own life was quietly improving. Work felt more fulfilling. I got a small raise and a commendation from the head vet for my work on a particularly complicated surgery. My apartment transformed from temporary housing into an actual home. Biscuit and I explored our new neighborhood, discovering parks and trails and dog-friendly restaurants. And yeah, I kept seeing Danielle. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner turned into movies, casual hangouts turned into something more. Our first real date was at this little Thai place she'd been wanting to try. We closed the restaurant down talking, same as that first coffee shop conversation. Second date was a hike at a state park about an hour outside the city. She kept up with me the whole way, didn't complain once about the mud or the bugs. By the third month, we'd settled into something that felt natural. She'd come over after work. We'd cook dinner together. Watch TV with Biscuits sprawled across both our laps. Weekends were for actual activities. Farmers markets, day trips, a few concerts. She never made me feel like I needed to be doing something more impressive with my time. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, Danielle moved into my apartment. Her choice, her timing. She just said one day that she was tired of maintaining 2 separate places when she only ever wanted to be at one. Then came the charity gala. Nicole's company hosted this big annual event every November. Black tie, silent auction, live band, the whole deal. One of those events where everyone who was anyone in the local corporate scene showed up to see and be seen. I'd gone with her for 3 years running back when we were married, always feeling slightly out of place among all the executives and their perfectly polished spouses. This year, Danielle's company happened to be one of the sponsors. You don't have to come, Danielle said when she got the invitation. I know it might be weird seeing her there. I'm not hiding from my ex-wife. If you want me there, I'm there. She grinned. I want you there. We showed up looking good. Danielle in this dark green dress that made her eyes pop. Me in the suit I'd bought specifically for occasions like this. First time I'd worn something that nice since my wedding. The venue was this converted warehouse downtown with exposed brick and string lights everywhere. Open bar, past appetizers, a DJ spinning something tasteful in the corner. We were maybe 20 minutes into the event when I spotted Nicole across the ballroom. She was standing with Bradley and a group of his colleagues, laughing at something someone had said. She looked polished and perfect, exactly the image she'd always wanted to project. Bradley had his arm around her waist in that possessive way some guys do at events, marking territory. Then she saw me. Her face went through about 5 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, confusion, recognition, and then this flash of something that looked almost like regret when she noticed Danielle's hand in mine. She excused herself from her group and walked straight toward us. Jonathan. Her voice was carefully controlled. I didn't expect to see you here. Danielle's company is sponsoring. Nicole's eyes shifted to Danielle. The 2 women hadn't spoken since the dinner party incident. Danielle. Nicole. The silence stretched for a beat too long. Then Bradley appeared at Nicole's elbow, all smiles and professional charm. Everything okay, babe? Fine, just saying hello to some old friends. Nicole's voice was tight. Bradley, this is Jonathan, my ex-husband. And Danielle, my former college roommate. Former. That word landed like a slap. Bradley shook my hand with the grip of someone who'd read too many business advice articles. Good to meet you, man. Nicole's mentioned you. All good things, I'm sure. He laughed like I'd made a joke. She said you work with animals or something? That's cool. Very chill career path. He's a veterinary technician. Danielle cut in. He helps save animals' lives every day. Last week he assisted on a surgery that saved a family's dog from a stomach blockage. The owners cried when they got the news. Bradley blinked, clearly not sure how to respond to actual substance. Oh, that's really something. Nicole was watching Danielle with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between anger and something else. Maybe envy. We should get back to our table, Danielle said, squeezing my hand. Nice seeing you both. We walked away, and I could feel Nicole's eyes on my back the whole way. Later that night, while we were waiting at the valet stand, a text came through on my phone. Unknown number. I heard Bradley's been cheating on Nicole. Multiple women. One of them works at their company. Thought you should know. Brittany. I showed Danielle. Huh, she said. Brittany turning informant. Didn't see that coming. Should I respond? That's up to you. I thought about it for a second, then deleted the message. Nicole's problems weren't mine anymore. 2 weeks later, Ryan called with an update. Dude, you're not going to believe this. Nicole's new boyfriend got busted. Full office scandal. Apparently he was sleeping with 3 different women at the company, and one of them went to HR with receipts, screenshots, hotel charges on the company card, the whole 9 yards. That's rough. It gets better. Nicole found out at the same time as everyone else because the story leaked to some industry gossip blog. She showed up to work the next morning and everyone already knew. Had to walk past people whispering about how her boyfriend was a serial cheater. I felt a small pang of something. Not quite sympathy, but maybe recognition. I knew what it felt like to be humiliated publicly. To have people laughing at your expense. There's more, Ryan continued. Apparently, when she tried to reach out to her old friend group for support, Danielle wasn't the only one who'd moved on. Brittany's been distancing herself since that dinner party. I guess Kevin made some comment about not wanting drama in their social circle. Megan and Robert moved to Seattle for his new job. Ashley broke off her engagement to Preston after he got caught up in some shady real estate deal. So Nicole's basically alone. Basically, she tried calling Danielle last week. Danielle told her she wasn't interested in being a fallback option. I almost laughed. Almost. The final chapter came about a month later. I was at the clinic finishing up paperwork after a long day when the receptionist told me someone was waiting in the lobby to see me. It was Nicole. She looked different than I'd ever seen her. No perfect makeup, no designer clothes, just jeans and a sweater that looked like she'd grabbed whatever was clean. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "Can we talk?" she asked. I took her to the break room, away from prying eyes. "I owe you an apology," she said, sitting across from me at the small table. "A real one. Not for the divorce or the separation. For that night. For what I said about you in front of everyone." I waited. I've had a lot of time to think about things lately. About who I was becoming. About what I threw away trying to be someone I thought I needed to be. She took a shaky breath. "You were a good husband, Jonathan. A really good one. And I was so worried about what other people thought that I couldn't see it. What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know that I know now. That I was wrong. That you deserved better than how I treated you." I nodded slowly. "I appreciate you saying that. Are you happy? With Danielle?" "Yeah, I really am." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. That's good." She stood up, gathering herself. "I should go. I needed to say that. Finally." She walked out without another word. That night, I told Danielle everything over dinner at our apartment. Biscuits sprawled at our feet, the sounds of the city drifting through the open windows. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Honestly, relieved. Like something finally closed. No urge to gloat? Throw in a few I told you so's? Nah, she's dealing with enough. Besides, I've got better things to focus on." Danielle smiled and leaned over to kiss me. Good answer. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.